absolute cream puff, even by color, in the shop here. This is an 82 Ford LTD Crown Vic, and man, is it slick. Wow. This bad boy comes to us from New Mexico. A viewer drove her down last night. He is having fuel vapor lock problems. And it's kind of against the law where he's from in those parts to be selling non-ethanol fuel, and so we have got to figure things out. So the original carburetor has been taken off and replaced with, I believe, a 2150. And we're not going to get into all the ins and outs of all the electronics, all the differences in those carburetors. You know, by the early 80s, carburetors were doomed. You know, they weren't getting any better, and fuel injection was right on the horizon. And they've got a bad rap, right? Now, he's got a lot of add-ons, like a carb cheater and so on and so forth. I hope to not get into any of that, but what we're gonna do, my job is going to be, can we make this thing a little bit more reliable in hot weather, considering where he lives, considering the gas he has to buy. Can we just help a guy out? He's been through quite a series of mechanical fuel pumps on this thing, and he has Edelbrock or Holly, or I can't even remember the brand name right now. He has an electric inline pump down below. Woo, that's a little warm. And we are going to take that out. What we're going to run with is a Holly in-tank pump, and we're going to put it right in the factory tank here. And hopefully that is possible. Get my fuel hook disconnected. He has replaced the ignition system on here with something a little bit more reliable. Man, that's hot. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to use his electric pump to drain what remains in the tank. Okay, so that looks like a fuel line there. No, that looks like an evap hose. There's our fuel line. Going up to that thing. That's all wrapped with tape. There's a little bit better look under the hood. I think we have a 5-liter. Like I say, there's the 2150. Here is the carb cheater box, so you can get on your tablet inside and you know, watch your AFR and your manifold pressure and all that good stuff. He's also got a fuel pressure sensor here, so he has fuel pressure gauge in there. And the guy's a pilot, and he likes his instrumentation, is what I'm getting. Let me show you that. Didn't believe me when I said it was a cream puff? Well, you were wrong. I don't even want to touch things in here, but here we got all kinds of gauges and digital readouts, and you know. So maybe if I show you, actually. But anyway, okay, enough of that. I'm gonna get this in the air. We are gonna drop the tank. That is the main job here. They've got it set to be 99 degrees today, and in a bare tin shed, it's gonna get a little spicy. So just expect some background noise, you know? The fan running. Let's get to work. All right, he drove this thing here with the barest minimum of gas. So he's very helpful. So we'll see how much the pickup tube gets out. That thing doesn't work too well. That electric fan is loud. But that's nothing. No wonder he's having problems. It could be sucking fumes at this point. I don't know.
Arise, my beauty!
One thing I did not expect, and this just shows my ignorance on these things, I did not expect a full-size sedan to have a vertical tank. So, hopefully that's something this new fuel pump can work with. But I wanted to come in here and look for possible fuel line problems in relation to especially exhaust. And overall, it's looking really, really good. Here's his electric fuel pump. And by the time we get in here, then it starts to get close to the exhaust, but they've got it wrapped up. So that really, I bought a bunch of tape. Heat tape, heat wrap, but they got it done already. And he really wanted to remain with the electric or the manual pump in case he wanted to back up. He wanted it to stay. So I'm not gonna argue with him on that. So fuel lines really look okay to me. We got the cherry bomb or the thrush. I'm not sure which one. But anyway, let's see. We're sounding pretty empty. So I am going to disconnect wiring and a fuel line, and let's drop this thing down. Yeah, she's bone dry. That's impressive.
It's a good thing it's cool in this gas line. If it ever got warm, the gasoline would form vapor, and the pressure would hold the gas back in the tank. But we won't get stuck, because this pipe is on the right side of the car, while the hot exhaust is far over on the other side.
All right, so a guy was a little bit worried about what we were gonna do here, considering the fact that this pump was made for a horizontal tank, not a vertical one. I'm still not 100% sure. Now the bracket the pump mounts on itself is this dude here, and that goes up in that cavity there, and then you clamp your pump to that. And that's all well and good. But if we were to mount this horizontally, then I have no way to obviously, you know, attach the pump to the thing. I guess it can just use gravity and just sit in the bottom, hanging there. I mean, it might get wound up several times. Anyway, this says this can go 13 and 3/32 depth max. Let's just see what they're talking about here. I have no doubt they know what they're talking about. Okay, where's 13? 7/32, and that doesn't add much, but I don't even know how they're getting that, to be honest with you. Anyway, because this tube doesn't even reach that far. What are you talking about, guys? This is like 11 or 12. I don't know. I need to look into that. But anyway, I need to pop this vent out. I'm thinking I can go straight down. I might have the clearance here. The sweat's just rolling now. That's good information for you. You can probably come up with the right enough clearance there. But our tank is more like 15. I need to get a good measurement from inside. Can a guy make an extension or what? Okay, so here's where I'm at. And we're just gonna have to do some fun stuff here. You know, there's just no two buts about it. We just gotta do it. Otherwise, I don't know what we would do otherwise, honestly. Anyway, I've kind of assembled, kind of taken apart our pump here. And, you know, the little piece of hard fuel line they sent, I don't know how you can possibly get 13 inches out of this thing with what they provided. I have, in preparation for this job and the Mustang fuel injection job, I ordered 10 feet each of 5/16 and 3/8 fuel injection EFI ready hose. If I can find something to extend this arm width at home, I don't think I have anything here, then I will use this stuff to complete the connection. If I have to run to town and just start looking around, then I may see if I can find some hard line. I just want 4 more inches. We've got the wire to do it, you know, but that's it. So, I don't know what this is going to look like. Being aluminum, my options are limited, but anyway. Okay. So here's my modified pump. I found a piece of, I believe that was from the 81 El Camino, the Dakota Digital gear switch install. That little piece of stainless. It was flat and I broke a 90 in it and then riveted it to the Holly bracket. Clamped it on, nice and rigid. Shouldn't be anything wrong with that. I now have a full 16.5 inches from the bottom of this to the bottom of our sock here. So that ought to be really good. Got it all going. I need to add a plug in the return. But otherwise, I think this thing is ready for install. Hope it works. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, this requires a 3 1/4 hole, and I'm going to do that to what would be the left side of the car and back towards the trunk. So just here. I think we'll get rid of that vent hole completely by the looks of it. And then we will have to re-drill a new vent hole where we can. My only concern is our sending unit, original factory sending unit, which we still need, is on the front side and offset. I don't know if I'm going to have clearance for the sweep of that float in regards to our electric pump. You know, we're making this up as we go along here. Okay. All right. Settle down, son. There you go. Anyone got a smaller hand? Okay, I have the original sending unit stuck in there tight with the lock ring. Fuel pump is just kind of loose, sitting on top of its big, comfy, cushy gasket there. But you can see what I have going here. I took the float arm and I clocked it 90 degrees, so the float is now vertical. A little close for comfort, I will admit. But what else is a guy gonna do at this point, you know? So hopefully when I tighten that down, that pump won't go into the arm. And you also could put that float 90 degrees or 180 pointing down, but then it'll touch the tank before it bottoms out at E, you know? So I think this way it'll be a little quicker to show empty than it actually is, but you know, a guy's gonna be less likely to get in trouble that way. By the way, I asked this guy as he was driving on his way to not fill it up, you know, when he was getting close, but to have it as empty as he was comfortable with. And that is all the fuel that he allowed himself. That's awesome. A few ounces will get you there. That's why I say he was coming in on fumes. All right, I'm gonna start tightening everything down. I've got our vent hole cut, and we'll get that installed. Barbs and plugs on the pump. Maybe we can get this tank back in. Starting to feel like maybe I'm close to ready to try in this thing. We had some foam rubber cushion material that they threw in there. And the pump kit, which is great. It's nice and thick, at least half an inch. And I definitely want to use that. side by side there. I also kind of beat the flange of the tank down here so our hose can go straight across. I'm going to take a look at my relay kit and probably get some wires connected here before we go up with the tank. That seam wasn't in the middle. Pretty sure people would still buy your pumps if you added 30 more cents a wire, you know. I never understand that logic. Just get it to where a guy can work with it if the tank's installed, you know? Now we're starting to cook. Well, good morning. After a full day of living in an air fryer yesterday, I finally had to give it up for the night, fighting the battle of the tank strap hardware. And I finally just barely succeeded here. You got your typical J-nut through the sheet metal, and then a stud, and then a flange nut. And one stud was seized up in the J-nut, cannot get it out even with heat and oil and all the necessary stuff, you know. Just was not coming out. Of course, everything's metric, so you know, for some of you that may not be a big deal, but here in rural Kansas, that can be a real problem. Metric is something that John Deere and the big three forced on us, you know, 40 years ago. And I probably could find, once again, go to John Deere, 10 miles away. I probably could find some hardware there. But anyway, I was able to get it started with a little help of some things, as you see. Came in at 6 this morning, try to cool the shop down. And get a bit of an earlier start just to make sure we can get this thing done for this guy. I'm gonna try really hard for today. Okay. That's nice and tight. How are we doing there? Now that sun's coming through the door, I can't see a thing out of any other part of my eye. There we go. Okay, we'll show you up under here, and then we are going to move on. I'll show you this tank strap hardware. There's the J-nut to the right, and then the stud and the nut. And yeah, it was difficult, but we got her. We got our fuel line. Hindsight, able to kick in now. And if I had more time, if I didn't have a guy waiting on me from out of state, I would probably like to pull the tank out again. I really don't want to, don't get me wrong. Pull the tank out again and then cut the steel fuel line back over to here. I don't know if you can see it, but somewhere in here. Unfortunately, my hose had to go from the pump clear around that flange, how the tank is made, and then back to here. I couldn't go over because of the structure of how this car is built. You just can't fit anything between the body and the top of the tank here. So I had to go clear around. So with that in mind, I could have done a straight shot from my pump to this side of the tank and right into the steel line if it would be cut off at the frame here. But we're not pulling it all out. This is gonna function just fine. It's all secure. I'm gonna clean up a little bit of a mess I have going on here, lower it, and we'll work on the relay. Oh, I can also get my filler neck secure again. I've also put in a fuel filter where the old pump was. Here comes the sun. If I didn't tell you to begin with, I can't remember anymore. The pump we just installed is a Holley 19-365. That is just kind of a universal pump. In-tank pump, I think it only provides 6 PSI, designed to run a carburetor. So that's what that was. Now, if I can find a place among all of the electronics under this hood here, Holley 12-753 fuel pump relay kit is what I'm going to be installing. There's my relay and my harness. I'm going to run these and get her hooked up. Got a long way to go to the battery over there. All right, I think all my connections are made, both fuel and electrical, other than the single wire going to a keyed ignition source. So I think I'm going to back it up so I can open the door, and we'll get that hooked to the fuse junction block, fuse block, whatever, somewhere. And then I think it's time to try it. Hot dog. Oh, do we have a good ground? Let's try this thing. There we go. Okay. What you got for me here? You know, working on this thing just reminds a guy of his childhood. That is for sure and for certain. We were definitely a Chevy family. I remember one Caprice. I think my folks had a 4-door and a 2-door at different times. And I definitely remember one of them. And there's hot. Remains hot. And then a little later we got a 78 Pontiac Grand Safari, which I've talked about in the past. Okay, what about that one? Nope. And I actually drove that thing to school. There we go. That'll do, pig. Okay, we're gonna see if when I put the key on, if it runs. Okay. I don't think I hear anything. Oh, I don't have the fuse in the front yet. Holy cow. I've probably already gone over this, but that toggle switch on the dash, when he hit that, both the cooling fan and the old fuel pump were hooked together on it. So they would just both run on the same time. So I've just disconnected the old fuel pump positive wire, and I was just grounded to the chassis. And otherwise, I just taped that end up, and otherwise he can hit that now for his fan, and that is it. And I think I am ready once again. Yeah. There she's running. Okay. Got 5 gallons to put in her, so let's do that. Curious to see what this sounds like when it primes. Changed. Okay, this thing's got quite a bit more timing in it than I would think a guy would want on a stock 302. So we'll play around a little and adjust this. Maybe that'll help the situation. Try not to get my lead into the fan. Well, I guess we could test drive it. Now, because he has the carb cheater on there, I can access what we're looking at here. And, you know, he's from probably 3 times the elevation. So our air to fuel ratio is going to be a little off. Although I believe he said you set it for the lowest elevation on the coldest day. Like, I don't know how you're gonna ever hit that 100% right, but you know, it's a little rich, so what does that say? Little over 8 pounds of fuel pressure. Not 100% sure that's completely accurate. Oh, what a marshmallow. This thing just... You could drive to Timbuktu in this thing and not even get saddle sore. I kid you not, the cruise is working. See that foot? It's not doing anything. Wow. Impressive. What an unholy mess. And I could do that just in a day and a half. Less than. Alright guys, well, thus ends the saga of the Southwest Cream Puff 82 Ford LTD. I called the guy and he said 13 and a half is what he kind of expected as far as the air-fuel ratio at idle. Right now, the way things were running when it was 100 degrees, he was driving down the road. And it sounds like he's on top of all that. He knows way more about this carb cheater setup, and there's an air bleed valve, kind of like idle air control valve, that lets air in. It'll take care of itself. So I'm not going to touch the carburetor. Now there were a couple other products that I had on hand in case we needed them, but like I say, it was done before it got here. Heat tape, wrap up any lines close to exhaust especially. I bought a thicker base gasket for the carburetor. This carb cheater setup has quite a big base plate on it with stuff going on, so that wasn't an issue either. On his Stewart Warner temp gauge, his accessory gauge down there, it was going past 180, which he says he's used to seeing 220, which I really wouldn't like on a consistent basis. However, when I got back and I used my little infrared thermometer on the thermostat housing and around on the intake and the hoses, there was nothing over 170. So kind of have my doubts that gauge is very accurate anymore. It may not be getting as hot as it shows in there. We took some timing out of it, which should help. We got good, cold, as cold as we can make it fuel, and a consistent supply now. What else can a guy do at this point? Just make sure the cooling system is good to go. I know this is a new radiator. If it's an old radiator, maybe you should flush it. Make sure your water pump's up to snuff. You've got a old school actual fan, belt-driven fan, and it's got a clutch on it. Make sure that clutch isn't completely worn out. Make sure that's locking up when it gets hot. I know this thing also, he said, had plugged catalytic converters. They took care of that before it got here. Anything like that is going to contribute to the overall problem. But I really think looking at this fuel system, it's as good as it can be now. So we'll see. The only other possible thing is maybe figuring out some kind of return system to the tank just to keep fuel circulating. Time will tell. He's going to try it and we'll see what happens. So there we go for the cream puff. It was a pleasure working on it. A good trip down memory lane for me in my childhood, and that's good to do it. Thanks for watching. God bless you. We'll see you on the next one. I kind of want to hit the open road. Actually, I am going to take it back to town for him. Oh, that'll be fun. I'm running this back to town. We're even rolling down the road with AC. Can you believe it? One thing I did not think about previous, you see, he came such a long way. He's staying in town, you know, and staying in a hotel and the things you want, restaurant, convenience store, whatever, Family Dollar, you know, you're gonna have to walk 100, you're gonna have to walk half a mile in 100-degree weather. I didn't want him having to do that, so I let him borrow our Chrysler van, take it to town, keep it at the hotel. If you need to go to town, you need to go to a bigger town, whatever. Just while I'm working on this, have fun, right? I didn't even consider the fact that, you know, small rural town, people might recognize it sitting at a hotel. Hey, I'm sure it's fine.